you're just joining us, round 7 of the Standard Open here in Baltimore. Patrick Sullivan with Matthias Hunt. We have 2 players here, Chris McMurry and Josh Cho, 6-0, both playing with, Blood Baron decks, essentially, we can call them. Chris touching blue for Detention Sphere and Sphinx's Revelation and Supreme Verdict. Josh playing the black-white mid-range deck. We saw have obviously an excellent showing at Grand Prix Dallas a little while back, and the Star City Open in Orlando a few weeks back as well.
Yeah, what I really like about the Blue Splash in this matchup is that Chris isn't very scared of Pack Rat in this matchup. Even a resolved Pack Rat does not pose a large threat to his deck. He has Detention Spheres, he has Supreme Verdict.
His own Pack Rats?
His own Pack Rats. Yeah, it's unlikely that he will be left with a hand that cannot answer a Pack Rat. And we are underway with game 2. Josh Cho will be on the play. Remember, these players are at 6-0. It'll probably take any players with an 8-0 start will probably be in our top 8. The loser will have to win, come up with 2, probably 3 more wins.
Looks like Chris is contemplating a mulligan here.
And they're both on 7. So Josh leads off on a Temple of Silence.
Often when you keep a sketchy hand in the Black Mirror, both players get to find out about it soon enough, as there are so many Thoughtseizes and Duresses in the post-board games.
Yep, and speaking of Thoughtseize, Chris is going to go ahead and deal 4 to himself. He's going to shock into a Thoughtseize. Josh's hand is 3 lands, Pack Rat, Devour Flesh, Elspeth. So by getting the Pack Rat in this hand, he's left Josh with a fairly anemic hand.
Yeah, it's a hand with no pressure. It's also a hand that's really susceptible to future discard spells.
Yeah, a second discard spell will take care of the Elspeth. It's pretty susceptible, as you said, to say Underworld Connections even. Yeah, and Pack Rat quickly taken by McMurry. Second land is cast by Cho. He looks like he's drawn a... I'm not sure. Second land by McMurry, though. Looks like he does have the potential to Pack Rat, but he opts not to. He's going to wait and play it as a 5-drop.
Yeah. Conscious of Devour Flesh, so not willing to run it in there.
Yeah, and if you look at Chris' hand, you see he does have that Underworld Connections in his hand. So possibly we may see a repeat of game 1 where Connections can pull Chris ahead on cards. Gray Merchant is the draw, and we're back over to Chris.
Yeah, the big question is if Chris has any additional lands. The way he's hesitating here, I think he might not have a 3rd land.
Yeah, he has a pair of Connections, but I think you're right that he's stuck on land. And he's just going to pass. He had the option to make a Pack Rat there, chose not to do it. And the next play will be Josh Cho's. It is a Lifebane Zombie. We'll get to see what Chris is keeping, see if Zombie hit anything. We see Connections, Night Veil Spectre, Supreme Verdict, Gray Merchant of Asphodel, and Devour Flesh. So nothing for the Zombie to hit.
Lightbane Zombie, you think of it typically more about coming in against Pelucano style decks, but in these sort of matchups, Blood Baron is the most meaningful card. Obsed's not too shabby either, and so Lightbane Zombie trying to be a really specific answer to that threat.
And yeah, just Blood Baron is such a difficult card for Josh to deal with, and Chris McMurray is going to go ahead and throw out the Devour Flesh on instead.
He may have to discard at the end of this turn anyway, so might as well cast it.
And he doesn't have to discard, but his land comes into play tapped. It's going to be a Temple. He finds an uncastable card. I think it's a Blood Baron that he ships to the bottom. And he still has to debate whether or not he wants to play out the Pack Rat. I think he does play Pack Rat here at this point. Josh will have to use main phase mana to deal with it.
Yeah, also, if he keeps sandbagging, that Devour Flesh is getting better too, because eventually Chris has to cast something, a Night Veil Spectre, a Blood Baron, whatever. So
right, yeah. It's best to just grind it out of Josh's hand. I think the biggest concern from Chris is that he knows that Josh on turn 6 will have an Elspeth. And he's got to be ready when that happens.
He could really use another discard spell.
Yeah, he could. A top deck Duress would be real good for him. All right, about that, the Devour Flesh, which we knew was there, takes care of Pack Rat. Question is if Josh will have anything else to commit to the board, or is he all in on the Elspeth? And that will be it. He also has Lifebane Zombie and Dark Betrayal. All right, so Plains is the draw for McMurray. Because it doesn't produce black, he cannot connections into a duress effect. Well, he doesn't have the land to do it anyway. So he will make connections though, and pass the turn.
Can't cast a Night Veil Spectre also.
Yep. And I don't know if Josh has, I don't think Josh actually has the 6th land, so a little bit of a reprieve for McMurray there. Josh's draw was Sin Collector. And as we know, Supreme Verdict is in the hand, so it leaves him with connections, Night Veil, Gray Merchant. And now, with that missed land, things are starting to look up for Chris.
And Supreme Verdict is another interesting card in this matchup that gives Chris another way to kind of control what's happening on the board. A lot of the times in this matchup, Blood Baron is, you know, it's Devour Flesh or bust, but Chris can actually get out from under that card and a litany of other threats in Josh's deck because he has Supreme Verdicts in his list.
Yeah, and so Chris is going to go ahead and shock with the Godless Shrine he drew. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make 2nd Underworld connections right now and just really go hard with drawing cards. He's going to make Night Veil Spectre instead. And Night Veil will get Dark Betrayals.
It's a big tempo swing for Josh here now if he can land that Elspeth.
Looks like he has a Temple of Silence, so it's going to be one more turn without the Elspeth.
And Josh got off to a really good start this game too, but Underworld Connections is still the card that matters.
Well, he had a hand that was really threat light, and that's the whole, mana screw versus mana flood dilemma. Given enough time, the mana screw deck almost always ends up on top. And I feel like we're seeing that play out once again. And a swing will chip it into Chris's life total a little more.
Yeah, Chris really gets to control the rules of engagement in the post-board games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in the mono black mirror or the black white mirror that the other player kind of can't answer. Pack Rat we see a lot in game 1s, and certainly Blood Barons in the post-board games, but Chris can answer those cards definitely more efficiently than Josh can.
I would have liked to see the 2nd connections come down because Chris does have Gray Merchants in his hand, so I don't even feel like the life loss is that relevant. It's just cards is what he wants to draw toward. And what a dagger for Josh. Chris finds the Thoughtseize in time to hit Elspeth.
Leaving Josh with just a Lifebane Zombie. Very little pressure in play.
Yeah.
And now also the coast is clear for Chris, any one of Chris's big threats to come down as well.
Yeah, that was a huge turn. That was a race that Josh was favored to win, but did not end up getting. And we're going to see a Godless Shrine tapped. Chris will go ahead and make a 2nd Underworld Connections.
So Chris is being conscious of his life total here. He could have played the dual land untapped, but that's a lot of damage.
He played the dual land untapped, drawn a 2nd card off another Underworld Connections.
Yeah.
And then he'd be at 7, he'd be at 5, then 3 after the attack. That's getting kind of low. You might want to watch out.
But he has a big edge right now in the total card count race, no matter what. Even if he doesn't use connections this turn, he's got to be somewhat concerned about his life total.
All right. And from Josh Cho, it is Lifebane Zombie, and it looks like Ratchet Bomb.
Yep.
So Ratchet Bomb actually will eventually take a Underworld Connections. They'll probably get the chance to deal enough damage, though, before they leave.
Yeah.
Not to mention Josh's whole board are 3s. So. You see Chris down to 6 from Underworld Connections. Now, his removal spells are Ratchet Bombs here. Those are not really the removal spells of choice in this situation. I feel like putting more 3s onto the board may hurt him more than it helps.
Yeah. Chris is in one of those spots where he has such such an edge going forward that the thing he's concerned with most is just dying in the short term.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about him not casting Gray Merchant here. I feel like that would still be a really good play. Yep, and I think he's going to switching from Detention Sphere to Gray Merchant. He's
going
undecided.
I mean, this is a big play. Yeah, it's whether or not he wants to play the Hallowed Fountain, tapped or untapped, and draw an extra card or save himself damage.
Shock to go to 4. Gray Merchant will drain for 6. That puts him up to 10. Josh now down to 15.
And now, if this turn, if Josh doesn't find a removal spell for that Great Merchant or a really good threat, Chris is going to really start running away with the game in terms of his total card count.
One count on Ratchet Bomb. Remember, Chris can Detention Sphere the Ratchet Bomb if he so chooses. And We see here 3 mana will be in Underworld Connections of Josh's own. That could get him back in. He's down a lot of cards, but this will help.
The big thing here is a removal spell this turn for that Gray Merchant. If Josh misses an opportunity to attack here, and Chris gets an opportunity to draw 2 cards off the Underworld Connections, that's just a difficult edge to overcome.
All right, well, and that is unfortunately for Josh what's going to happen. Chris goes to 9. And I think he's going to draw again down to 8. And with the new influx of cards, he's going to go ahead and untap. Let's see what he can make now that he has restocked on resources. Third card, that's going to be his land for the turn. We see Underworld Connections, we see Detention Spheres, we see Supreme Verdict, and this is ready.
And this is one of those spots where Supreme Verdict is awesome. Now that he's ahead on the card advantage board, he can clean up the board and just grind out more cards.
He can clean up the board, he can Detention Sphere the Ratchet Bomb, he can do many different things. Yeah, and that's not suspect at all. He's going to go ahead and attack with Gray Merchant.
Yeah, but Josh can't block. Otherwise, he doesn't even have to, even if he does that, he doesn't even have to Wrath, so.
Yeah, so he's going to sweep the board. Josh was at the ready, sees the play coming. Nothing he can do about it. Board is clear now. 2 connections on Chris's side, 1 on Josh's. There is a Ratchet Bomb. Chris makes a tapped land. And I believe will pass back turn.
Oh, he's going to Detention
Wow, he's going to sphere the Ratchet Bomb. That was a very aggressive play because it cost him 2 additional cards to do it.
Right, there was no rush to kill the connections.
You had to do it next turn because otherwise it gets your connections. But that may have been a little hasty.
Let's see if Josh is able to capitalize here.
And let's see, we have Pack Rat. And 3 mana up and another card, so that could do it. And Josh continues to make the land drop, however. Scries to the top with the Temple of Silence. And I still feel like there's a window for Josh here.
Oh, yeah. No, Chris is definitely not out of the woods yet, by any means.
Yeah, he's most of the way, but not all the way. We see Supreme Verdict drawn, so now he has Verdict and Sphere. He can choose which way to answer Pack Rat. His first draws a land. He's down to 7.
If he's familiar with the black-white list, he knows that these lists do not typically play with Gray Merchant. So he can be pretty liberal in reducing his life total here with these connections.
Yep, and he draws a second card. He's down to 6. We will see, it looks like it is Sin Collector.
Just 1 card in Josh's hand.
And 4 mana's cast, that's going to be Supreme Verdict, taking care of Pack Rat. So Chris using his card advantage to bully a bit here, and now we'll hit for 2 with Mutavault. Blow totals are 6 and 9 in favor, still of Josh Cho, but with the difference being reduced quickly.
Yeah, and it's really good here of Chris to threaten the life total of Josh a little bit. It makes that Underworld Connections a little bit sketchier. It also sets up a lethal Gray Merchant potentially as well.
Yeah, so Josh down to 8, he draws Sin Collector. He sees Sin Collector, Detention Sphere, Underworld Connections. That'll be a pass back. The other card in Josh's hand is a Dark Betrayal. And Chris certainly has an advantage, but he actually doesn't have any ways to push damage right now. He just has cards. Good cards, mind you, but nothing that wins the game.
Right, and it's really risky for him to be using removal spells on things like Sin Collector to push through with the Mutavault, because he's possibly opening himself to something like Blood Baron stealing the game, or Elspeth stealing the game.
Yeah, he has used a lot of Supreme Verdicts already. Sin Collector is cast by McMurray with the trigger on the stacks. It's going to get Dark Betrayal because Dark Betrayal is the card it was going to take. And there's one thing, just a technical play I kind of want to note here. A lot of times Chris is casting a spell and then drawing with Underworld Connections. If that's your game plan, I feel like you should be drawing with Connections first.
Well, I think in the case of Sin Collector, it might be a little bit different because you want the information about what's in their hand.
Right.
In general, if you know they're going to say, play a Detention Sphere to remove the creature, you may as well use your Underworld Connections first. Maybe you find a better land to play. Maybe you want to sequence your spells differently.
Maybe you hit something else you want to play. Yeah. And then that has happened a couple times this match as well.
It's a little bit different because depending on what's in Josh's hand, it might actually inform him to not use the Underworld Connections in the first place.
Right. If Josh, say, had
Gray Merchant.
Yeah. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't play this Underworld Connections. Right. It's a Gray Merchant for 5 this turn. That's bad.
But yeah, as a general rule of thumb, you want to be looking at your cards, drawing cards first, then allowing that information to sculpt how you want to proceed.
All right, well, one card was drawn. He is deciding whether or not he wants to draw another one. His life total is getting pretty low. And it's interesting with the underworld connections. So Chris does have the advantage, but sometimes if he can't draw the life gain spell, the fact that he has 2 connections to 1 doesn't end up mattering. You know, if Chris gets down to 1 life, he just can't draw anymore.
Yeah, he really would like to find some proactive stuff at this point, as Josh's shields are down. I mean,
yeah, the only life gain spells he has are those Blood Barons and Gray Merchants. If he boarded, yeah, he doesn't have any, so he doesn't even have any Obsidates in the sideboard. So, well, he has the one of Sphinx's Revelation too, which he could draw too.
yeah.
That'd be actually an insane draw. Very good. All right, but he draws one. He does not draw the second card. Okay, yeah, you actually use the second connections land to hit with the Mutavault.
Yeah, he's trying to pressure Josh's life total here.
Yeah, it's 5-5. Josh drew an extra card with the Underworld connections. This board is still empty. Temple of Deceit puts another temple to the bottom. And what I like about Chris is going to activate 2 Mutavaults. He pushes Josh down to 1. What I like about how he's using these connections is he's templing first before tapping connections to make sure it's a card he wants before he draws it.
Yeah, I really like Chris switching gears here. Since he was looking for proactive cards to begin with, it makes the most sense for him to be laying Mutavault beatdowns. And there's a concession.
Right. Josh down to 1. So Chris McMurray up to 7-0. Possibly 1 win from the top 8. Josh down to 6-1. He's going to need at least a pair or maybe 3 more wins.
Yeah, Josh reveals a hand of 2